Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about predicting death in astrology. Now, I'm not really sure if there is actually a foolproof method of predicting death. There are indicators, I believe, in astrology that would indicate a greater propensity, perhaps for somebody dealing with death or maybe experience it his or herself. The first thing I think to look at in a natal chart, if something connected with death this person may experience, I would look for transits by Pluto to the 4th or 8th house. The 4th house governs the end of life, and the 8th house is associated with death. So those would be two obvious things to me to look at as far as that goes. And actually, I mean, you look at other transits from other planets, say to the 8th or 4th house. Now, say if Uranus was to transit the 4th or 8th house, you might, Uranus is connected with unanticipated events, so, and there might be some kind of something that is unexpected that's associated with that house. So I wouldn't rule out a transit from Uranus as far as this possibility may go. Now, some other things to consider as far as perhaps a person experiencing maybe their actual death or the death of someone prominent in his or her life. Maybe I would say, well, transits from the North Node to the 4th or 8th house, transiting Pluto, hitting the Sun, Moon, or Ascendant, perhaps even the North Node, because a lot of times when a conjunction is made to the North Node, it could indicate issues that we have to confront in our lives. And Pluto being associated with death, that would be something where an issue may have to be confronted. And it doesn't necessarily mean it would pertain to that person's own death, but maybe somebody else's, somebody that figures significantly in his or her life. Now, another thing to consider is that as far as looking for possible period as far as death goes, maybe transiting Pluto, conjoining the ruler of one's 4th or 8th house in their natal chart. Sometimes a contact to the person's own Pluto can be an indicator of this. Now when Robin Williams died, transiting Sun had conjoined his natal Pluto. Now, I don't see that as very frequent as far as a death indicator, because on average, I mean, the Sun traverses all the signs of the zodiac every single year, and the Sun is going to conjoin your natal Pluto. If you use a 10-degree orb, that's like 20 days out of 365-day period or so. And that, I don't know what the percentage is exactly, but that's like, I mean, let's see, 37 would be about 10%, so 20, that's over 5% of the time you're going to have the transiting Sun conjoin your natal Pluto. So Robin Williams also had some other elements, and you may have heard, I've discussed in at least one previous video, that he had he had the natal, I think what happened was he had transiting Neptune and Chiron conjoining his own, his North Node Moon conjunction in Pisces in the 4th house of the end of life. So this is something where I think a lot of times if somebody, as far as trying to see a prediction of somebody dying, a lot of times I think it needs multiple elements. One element, I mean, it's possible to have maybe somebody that has the transiting Pluto going into their 8th or 4th house could be an indicator of death, but maybe they also have number of adverse aspects in their own natal chart that are being made to transiting Pluto at the same time, or the same thing with a transiting North Node in someone's 4th or 8th house. Now, I wouldn't rule out Chiron as far as this goes either, because Chiron, even though it's not a planet, okay, it's an asteroid, but it's associated with wounds, and generally, at least for the most part, emotional or traumatic wounds. Now, if somebody has transiting Chiron in their 4th or 8th house, this person may be dealing with some emotional wounds associated with what those houses represent. The 4th, as I stated before, the end of life. The 8th house is death. So when I had a family member pass away, I had transiting Chiron actually had conjoined my natal sun. So I think those are things to look at too. If transiting Chiron makes a contact to your natal sun, to your natal moon, your natal ascendant, those are things to possibly look at, because those are obviously very sensitive points in your chart, and I feel are really, as far as your character identity, those are the 3 main proponents. And if you have transiting Chiron hitting it, well, it could indicate that you might be experiencing some kind of strong emotional wounds, which would not exclude death. So these are something to consider. And I think another example I wanted to talk about is that perhaps in progressions or a progressed chart, you might be able to see something. If somebody in their progressed chart has a heavy dose of planets, say, that are in their 8th house in their progressed chart, it's something to look at. In their progressed chart, if somebody has Pluto in the 4th house in their progressed chart, Pluto in the 8th house in their progressed chart, the North Node, the Chiron, these are things to look at. Now, some interesting notes here, mental notes that I made. There were a couple examples. Was interesting when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. Transiting Pluto had conjoined his natal moon, and also the transiting North Node was making a long conjunction to his natal, I believe his natal Pluto, and his natal midheaven. And it was very closely, and interestingly enough, I don't think this has much significance, but the way it worked out was kind of bizarre, that the transiting North Node fell very close to the middle, where the middle point of his natal midheaven, or MC, and his, I believe, his natal Pluto. So that was something I thought was interesting. And when John Lennon was assassinated, interestingly enough, transiting Pluto conjoined his natal sun. So it seems like Pluto really is the strong planet in terms of this. It seems like it's the dominant planet that's involved when somebody passes away. So those are things I've talked about, are some things to look at. When my grandfather passed away in 1993, his, I believe, transiting Pluto was very close proximity to his natal 4th house of the end of life. So these are things to consider and to look at when somebody passes away. And also, as I stated before, remember to look at other possible times, is when the ruler of the 8th house or 4th house is making a contact, perhaps with transiting Pluto, the North Node, Chiron. Right now, interestingly enough, a transiting North Node is making a conjunction to the ruler of my 8th house in my 6th house of health. So this should be interesting. And just because it does that, people don't forget that the 8th house rules other things besides death, that it's connected with shared or others' resources, taxes. It's associated with sex, transformation, regeneration, rebirth, And so there's a number of things, insurance as well. So it could indicate for me that I'm maybe have to confront at least one of the issues that are associated with the 8th house, because I stated before, I have transiting North Node conjoining my 8th house ruler, which is Jupiter in the 6th house of health. So anyway, people, I want to show you something on my computer screen momentarily, so I give you a quick rundown of some things to look at as far as perhaps indicators or times where you might see a greater propensity or greater chance of perhaps experiencing a death, and not necessarily your own, of course. Or I would feel in more cases somebody, you might experience this maybe in your life though, one way or another, with perhaps somebody prominent in your life. It wouldn't exclude you, but I would think the percentages on average would be more than more somebody perhaps connected with you. So anyway, let me just show you, and just hold on momentarily. Okay, here we go, people. Possible death indicators in astrology. Pluto transiting 4th or 8th house. North Node transiting 4th or 8th house, transiting Pluto. Conjunct Sun, Moon, or Ascendant. Pluto in 4th or 8th house of progressed chart. North Node in 4th or 8th house of progressed chart. Transiting Pluto conjunct ruler of 4th or 8th house. Transiting Pluto conjunct natal North Node. And transiting North Node conjunct natal Pluto. Well, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for predicting death in a natal chart. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because a person astrologically is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.